Okay. Well, good evening. This is the Rotary E-Club of District 7710, and I'll pass it over to Kathy to introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Jeanne. It gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce Carl Davis as our guest speaker for the Rotary E-Club of District 7710 meeting. Carl is the Rotary Foundation's Major Gifts Officer for Zone 33. Zone 33 consists of 15 districts in North and South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Washington, D.C., and part of Tennessee. Carl has a home office near Raleigh, North Carolina, and his main work is accomplished by visiting with donors, mostly on a one-to-one setting. Carl's function is to help donors to the Rotary Foundation achieve their philanthropic goals with major gifts, bequests, life income agreements, or a Rotary Foundation donor advised fund. And Rotary designates major gifts are gifts that are over $10,000 or more. He is a certified fundraising executive and graduate of the fundraising school at Indiana University, as well as the Salvation Army College for Officer Training in Chicago, Illinois. He is the author of the book, Because Donors Want to Share, a donor-centric approach to the individual fundraising. He began his career as an officer in the Salvation Army and joined Rotary in 2000 while serving as a Salvation Army captain in Peru, Indiana. Before joining Rotary staff in April of 2013, Carl served as a major gifts officer for a community economic development corporation in Chicago and as the development director of Chicago's Center for Conflict Resolution. Carl loves using his professional skills for the organization he chose to join as a volunteer more than 15 years ago. Please join me in welcoming Carl to our program this evening. Carl?
Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. As I said earlier, this is my first time participating in an E-Club, so this is kind of fun and exciting. I've been a Rotarian now 16 years, and this is the first E-Club I've been to, and I really appreciate your invitation to be with you tonight. It's really a neat way to experience Rotary, and I'm really honored for the opportunity to do this during Foundation Month. I'm going to speak a little bit about our Rotary Foundation, and then I'll answer any questions anybody might have. As Kathy said, my perspective on the Rotary Foundation is that as a major gifts officer. I work one-on-one with individuals who want to use our foundation to have philanthropic impact with a major gift, and that's broadly defined by Rotary, either as an outright gift during the donor's lifetime, as a gift in their estate plans, or with a life income agreement where the donor makes a gift to the foundation and in exchange for that gift receives a lifetime income from the foundation. And we have donors all over Zone 33 every day who use our foundation to have that kind of philanthropic impact. And it's an opportunity we have as Rotarians to make the world a better place, that all of us, no matter how long we've been in Rotary or how new we are to Rotary, could all stand to do a better job of knowing more about this wonderful tool that we have. There's no person on earth who knows everything about our Rotary Foundation. It's very broad and very powerful for our philanthropic impact. So I'll start off with a little overview. Foundation is 100 years old. It was started 100 years ago when then Rotary International President Arch Klump decided that Rotarians needed a tool with which to do good in the world. And if you go to Atlanta, we are going to celebrate the 100th anniversary of our Rotary Foundation together when we are down in Georgia this June. And I'm looking forward to that. And today the Rotary Foundation is divided into three principal funds. We've grown a lot since that initial gift of $26.50 that Arch Klump gave 100 years ago. Today the Rotary Foundation has over $1 billion with a B US dollars under investment. Our foundation is divided into three principal funds, namely our Polio Plus Fund. The Rotary Foundation keeps Polio Plus donations separate from our other gifts because they need to be kept more liquid than our other resources, because polio vaccination is our #1 priority. It will remain our #1 philanthropic priority until polio is eradicated from the face of the earth. And thanks to the very generous support of Rotarians, we are almost there. We like to say we are this close to eradicating polio. In the last fiscal year, we raised $70 million to eradicate polio, and all of our money presently is being matched at a rate of 2 to 1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So when you or I give $1 to Polio Plus, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will give 2, resulting in $3 worth of polio eradication work taking place. So when we talk about value and impact in our philanthropy, you'd be hard-pressed to find any more impactful or greater value for the philanthropic dollar than our Polio Plus Fund. The eradication of polio is our #1 goal, but it's not all we do. In fact, we do a whole lot in addition to working to eradicate polio, and so we have other funds as well. The other fund that we ask every Rotarian to give to every year is our annual fund. The annual fund raised $116.6 million last year. The annual fund is the bread and butter fund of the Rotary Foundation, and it's a hallmark of how well Rotary is run. When a gift is made to the annual fund, it's received by the foundation and it's invested. And it stays invested for 3 years. During that 3-year cycle, the money that's generated from the investment earnings goes toward paying for the operating costs of our foundation. Once that 3-year investment cycle is completed, the gift comes out of the investment cycle and it then gets spent according to our values. As Rotarians, we believe in being good citizens of our own communities and of our world. And so our donation to the foundation gets spent according to that value system. Half of it is spent in our own home districts, wherever that is. For us here, it's in the Triangle region in North Carolina. Half of it is there, and half of it is used by the trustees globally wherever they see need around the world. And so that 50-50 sharing system is what we call share, because we share it 50% with our district designated funds, our home area, being a good citizen of our own neighborhoods, and half globally, being good citizens around the globe wherever the trustees see the need for that anywhere in the world. And then our third fund is a fund that's least known, and it's the fund I work with personally the most, and that's our endowment fund. It used to be called the Permanent Fund. A few years back, they changed the nomenclature, and now we call it the Endowment Fund, but you might still see some dated literature that says it says Permanent Fund. It means Endowment Fund now. Gifts that are made to the Endowment Fund stay invested for perpetuity. And instead of the earnings going to pay for operating costs like they do in the annual fund, the earnings on the endowment fund gifts are actually what's spent on our programmatic work. So a donor makes a gift to our endowment fund, the gift they made stays invested, and every year it generates earnings, and those earnings then get spent on whatever philanthropic work that Rotary does that the donor cared about to designate. So we work in 6 areas of focus through our endowment fund. Some donors will say, you know what, I trust the trustees to know exactly wherever they need the money most. And so some donors will say, my gift to the endowment fund, the earnings that it generates, trustees, use your discretion wherever you need it most, anywhere in the world. And I just worked with a donor yesterday over in Charlotte. He's giving a gift of $200,000 into our endowment fund. It'll generate earnings every year. And he said, the trustees will know how best to use it. Just trustees use it in the World Fund. So a donor can choose that. Other donors will say, I really like that system we have set up for the annual fund where we share it locally and globally. And they'll ask the earnings from their endowed gift to be shared 50-50 with their district and with the World Fund. That's the most common designation. Other donors will care very much about one of our specific areas of focus, such as peace and conflict prevention/resolution, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, or economic and community development. And they will say, Carl, put the earnings of my gift towards this particular area of focus that I care most about. And we are happy to let the donor pick whatever she or he wants their gift to go to support, we use the money that they give towards that goal. The endowment fund's value presently stands at $1 billion. And you say, well, how is that possible if you said we have a total of $1 billion under investment right now and the endowment fund alone is at $1 billion? Well, the reason for that is because in our endowment fund, we count money two ways. First of all is hard cash. That's money that's presently in the fund now earning interest. And that's about $400 million at present. In addition to that, in our endowment fund numbers, we count expectancies. And 60% of our endowment fund, $600 million, is presently held in expectancies. And what that means is a donor will say, I've put the Rotary Foundation in my estate plans. So when I am no longer here to need that resource, it will pass from my estate to the foundation to do good according to whatever I've set it up to do with the foundation. Any of those areas of focus, World Fund or Endowment Fund share. And when a donor tells us that they've put us in their estate plans for, say, $25,000, we then book that as an expectancy in the endowment fund. And that's why when you add together our $600 million worth of expectancies and our $400 million in cash that is presently in the endowment fund, our endowment fund value stands at around $1 billion. Our annual rate of return is about 7.5% on that over a 20-year average, some years more, some years less, depending on market performance. But that's a pretty respectable 20-year average return on our endowment. The most common gift that I work with is a donor that wants to set up a bequest for a gift amount of $25,000 because that's the threshold that the Rotary Foundation has established to create what we call a named fund. A named fund is a gift of $25,000 or more made into our endowment fund that is commingled for investment purposes, but is reported on separately in that donor's name and can support any of the 6 areas of focus or endowment fund share or World Fund. It's up to the donor. And it's an opportunity for a legacy that the donor can set up in their estate plans, and then their children or their surviving heirs can receive a report every year saying this is what Mom and Dad's Rotary Fund has done this year in our family's name. And so it's an opportunity for a Rotary legacy and a family legacy and a philanthropic impact that's really immeasurable over the long run. The $25,000 level is probably the most common gift value because it's where the name fund can be created and it generates about $1,000 per year in earnings. And many of us are Paul Harris Society members, where we give $1,000 now every year to the annual fund. And we couple that then with a $25,000 bequest in our estate plans, and it's kind of like being a member of the Paul Harris Society in perpetuity. While we're here and members of Rotary, we'll give that $1,000 a year, and then when we are no longer here, our estate plan will provide that named fund to continue that level of support in perpetuity when we are no longer here ourselves and leave that legacy. So that's probably the most common type of gift I work with. A couple stories I want to conclude with are some donors from our state here who have just done really cool things that I think you'll think are cool too. One is a donor from over in Clemens, North Carolina. His name's Carlos Pereira. He was born in Nicaragua, and he came of age right when the Sandinistas and the Contras were fighting in Nicaragua, and he fought to keep his country free from communism. And when those efforts failed, he relocated here to the United States, to North Carolina. And since that time, he has become a successful business owner in the Clemens area and a member of Rotary, and he's always maintained a very big heart for what's going on with the children in Nicaragua today. And Carlos goes down there to Nicaragua just about every year with groups of friends of his to help out and to do things to help children down there. He set up his own nonprofit called Saving Little Hearts in Nicaragua, and Carlos has just done wonderful things. But a few years back, he had some health problems that made him realize that he's not going to be around forever, and the problems in Nicaragua, the children down there are going to need help when he's not here to give it. And he was thinking, how can I make sure that the children down there still receive help that they need when I'm not here to do that anymore myself. And as a Rotarian, Carlos used our Rotary Foundation to accomplish that goal. He put in his estate plans a gift of $250,000 that will go into our endowment fund to endow a global grant that can only be done by his district in North Carolina in Nicaragua. And that way, Carlos will continue to have that impact in Nicaragua that he likes to have even when he's not here, because he said, I trust the Rotarians of my district to continue to do that good work if I provide them with the resources. So Carlos used our endowment fund, and because he wanted to help the children of Nicaragua, he was able to designate his gift to support a global grant for his district in North Carolina to do work down in Nicaragua. The other is a gentleman out in Asheville, and he's a retired brigadier general. He graduated from West Point in 1946. And his wife was a school teacher, and they had a wonderful career in the Army, traveling all over the world. And wherever Frank was stationed in the Army, she got a job teaching first grade. She was a first grade teacher, and teaching kids to read was really what she did in first grade curriculum at that time. She passed away several years ago, and Frank inherited her IRA. And I was talking with Frank a while back, and he said, Carl, I don't really need the money that's in that IRA. Every year I have to take money out of it, pay tax on it, just to move it from one account to the other. It's not doing me any help. I don't need it. He said, but I want to do something with that to honor my late wife. And so Frank gave $100,000 from his IRA to the Rotary Foundation to support our work in basic education and literacy in Mrs. Blasey's name. And so every year there are earnings from that fund that go to support Rotary's work in our area of focus of basic education and literacy in the name of Mrs. Blasey. And that's very important to Frank, because he said she earned that money while she was teaching children from all over the world how to read. Where else other than through Rotary could I have an impact of teaching children all over the world how to read? And so Frank used our foundation to accomplish that very special goal he had. I share those stories because most of what I do is really help donors like that one-on-one to have a very special impact that's special and meaningful to them through our foundation. And then we have other donors who, like the gentleman in Charlotte who I worked with yesterday, who didn't really have anything specific but just wanted to provide general support to our foundation's good work. And I close with this last thought. There are 300,000 of us Rotarians in the United States. And if each one of us made a gift either during our lifetimes or in our estate plans of $10,000 to our endowment fund, the next generation of Rotarians would have an endowment fund worth $3 billion with which to do good in the world. And there's a past district governor in Asheville, Carol King, who told me, she said, Carl, I don't know what the future problems of the world are going to be, but I do know that the people who are going to be best situated to solve those problems are the people who are going to be sitting in the Rotary clubs of the future. And so I want to make sure that I've done all I can to be sure that those people have the resources they need to make their world a better place. And so I encourage all of you to join me in making our world a better place through our Rotary Foundation. And I thank each one of you who do give every year to our Rotary Foundation for the work and generosity you have that make our world better through Rotary. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Carl.